All right, let's dive into something big, something foundational: privacy. It's more than just a word. It's the fabric that weaves through every corner of our lives, an unspoken freedom we feel without even realizing it. Imagine for a second. Every thought, every message, every choice you make is being watched, recorded, stored somewhere you have no control over. You'd hesitate, right? You'd start holding back, maybe even censoring yourself. And why? Because when there's no privacy, there's no true freedom. Privacy isn't about having something to hide. It's about having space to be yourself without the weight of a watchful eye hovering over you. When you're alone in your room, sitting in your car, or even just walking down the street, that feeling of ease, that calm in knowing you can think and feel whatever you want, is privacy in action. In America, we hold certain values close to the heart: freedom, autonomy, independence. Privacy is the silent champion of these values. It's what allows us to explore ideas, question authority, grow and learn without fear. Now, sure, we might think of privacy as an abstract concept, something that exists quietly in the background. But the reality is, it's under attack. In ways subtle and blatant, our privacy is being chipped away, bit by bit. It's not just the government. It's not just corporations. It's everywhere. Every device, every platform, every app you touch is gathering data about you. And that data is precious. It's a map of who you are. Your habits, your preferences, even your beliefs are all laid bare in digital trails left behind every single day. Think about it. What you buy, what you watch, what you search, who you text. It's all sitting in databases, waiting to be sold. It's all sitting in databases, waiting to be sold as, or worse, used against you. But let's go deeper, because this isn't just about data or marketing. This is about trust and control over our lives. Privacy is a cornerstone of a healthy society. When people feel their actions, their conversations, their beliefs are safe from prying eyes, they engage more openly. They're less afraid to speak up, to challenge, to innovate. Look at history. Every time privacy was breached, freedoms eroded. From oppressive regimes to corporate abuses, the story's the same. Privacy falls and control tightens. People feel powerless, monitored, afraid to step out of line. And in a place like America, where the ideals of liberty and independence have been the foundation of our nation, we simply can't afford to let that happen. Now, I'm not saying that we should live in fear or throw away our technology. Far from it. But we have to be aware. Awareness is the first step in protecting ourselves. We've got to recognize that our privacy isn't guaranteed. It's something we actively have to defend. You know, I'm a fan of technology. I love seeing where we're headed. The advancements we've made are insane and the future is exciting. But without checks, without boundaries, it's a double-edged sword. Our devices, the conveniences they bring, they also come with a cost. And that cost shouldn't be our ability to live freely, to think freely, It shouldn't cost us our peace of mind. So what do? We get involved, we learn, we push for transparency. We have to demand that our lawmakers, our leaders, prioritize our privacy. We can't just sit back and hope that corporations will do the right thing, because history has shown us that profit often comes before principle. And listen, this isn't about paranoia. It's about empowerment. When you know your rights, when you understand what's at stake, you make better choices. You stand a little taller and you push back a little harder. Privacy is power, plain and simple. It's what lets us live authentically without fear or constraint. It's a part of the American spirit, that sense of being untethered, free to chart our own course. So let's hold on to that. All right, so we've established the importance of privacy, but let's talk about the reality of today, where that privacy is constantly under threat. And I'm not just talking about some vague sci-fi concept of Big Brother. I'm talking about the actual, real world way that our personal lives, our choices, our very identities are being harvested and profited off of every single day. It's something that we're almost numb to now because it's so embedded in our daily lives. Think about it. Every app, every platform, every time you click agree to some user agreement you didn't read, you're signing away a bit of yourself. And it's not just your data, it's your habits, your beliefs, your connections to other people. All of that is valuable to someone out there, to tech companies, advertisers, data brokers, and sometimes even our own government. Now, let's make it personal. Imagine someone knew everywhere you went, every person you spoke to, every thought you posted online, even the things you search for in private. That's not some far off dystopia. That's right now. And it's not just that your data is being collected. It's that it's being used to shape your choices, sometimes without you even realizing it. The ads you see, the articles that pop up, the things that get recommended to you, it's all tailored based on data about you. And sure, that can be convenient. It's great when Netflix knows what show you might like, or when Amazon suggests a book that's right up your alley. But that's the small stuff. What's scarier is when that same data is used to influence bigger decisions. The news you see, the politics you support, even the way you perceive the world. It's no longer just about selling you a product. It's about shaping who you are and what you believe. So where does that leave us? Here's the truth. We're giving away bits of ourselves every day, usually without even realizing it. We're trading privacy for convenience, and we don't always see the price we're paying until it's too late. It's a slippery slope. It's one thing to share a little data here and there, but when you add it all up, it's like giving a stranger a detailed blueprint of your life, your mind, your heart. And let me tell you, once that door is opened, it's hard, sometimes impossible, to close it. Data doesn't disappear. It doesn't fade away. Once it's out there, it's there for good. Companies, governments, organizations, they have the power to keep, store, and use that information indefinitely. And that's not just our generation's problem. It's something that will affect our kids, our grandkids, the very future freedom as we know it. We need to understand this as a fundamental issue, not some niche concern for tech enthusiasts. Privacy is not just about personal choice. It's about power. When you control someone's data, you control their narrative, their access to information, even the way they view the world. If we keep going down this path without demanding change, without drawing the line, we could very well end up in a place where freedom is nothing more than a memory. Mm-hmm. And in America, the land of the free, that's a terrifying thought. Privacy isn't just some optional add onto life. It's the backbone of autonomy. It's what gives us the room to think, to dream, to dissent, and to be ourselves. Look, I know it's a big issue, and it's easy to feel powerless, to think, what difference can I make? But it's not about big sweeping changes right away. It's about awareness, about understanding the stakes, about speaking up. We've got to push back on companies and systems that exploit our data. We need to advocate for transparency, to demand that our privacy is respected, to support laws that protect us rather than invade us. Every time you take a stand, even if it's something as small as reviewing your privacy settings, you're saying, I'm here, I matter, and my privacy is not for sale. Privacy is our power, and we can't just hand it over. It's what makes us human. It's what allows us to live without fear, to have a space that belongs only to us. That's something worth fighting for. And if we want to preserve that, if we want to pass down that freedom to future generations, we've got to act now. We've got to act now. We've got to wake up, pay attention, and remind ourselves that we deserve more than to be mined for data. We deserve to live freely, truly, fully. And that means guarding our privacy like the treasure it is, because once it's gone, we can't just buy it back. We can't just turn it back on. Privacy, once lost, is gone forever. And that's something we can't afford. All right, so we've talked about why privacy matters, about how it's being taken from us bit by bit, and why that should absolutely terrify us. But let's get real about something. The ways we can actually protect our privacy in a world that's constantly trying to strip it away. Here's the thing. No one is going to hand us privacy on a silver platter. The tech giants, the corporations, even the government. They're not looking out for us. Their interests are tied to data, and that data is our lives, our choices, our identities. So if we want to keep any sense of privacy, it's on us. We've got to take action, make smart choices, and build a culture that values privacy as a right, not just an option. Now, some people might say, look, I have nothing to hide. Why should I care? And that's the wrong mindset. Privacy isn't about hiding something. It's about keeping control over who gets to see into your life and who doesn't. Imagine letting every random stranger have access to your medical records or your conversations with loved ones or every single thing you've ever searched online. It's not about secrecy. It's about sovereignty. It's about keeping that part of yourself that belongs only to you. And that's where we start by realizing that privacy is not just a nice to have. It's a fundamental part of living with dignity and freedom. So what can we actually do? First, we've got to be aware. Knowledge is power, right? We have to understand what's really happening with our data. Read those terms and conditions, or at least understand the basics of what you're agreeing to every time you use an app. Every time you accept cookies on a website, there's a trade-off. Companies are gathering information about you, and while some of it might seem harmless, when you start stacking it up, it creates a full, intimate picture of who you are. If we're going to stay in control, we have to start seeing these little decisions as a form of consent, because that's exactly what they are. Next, let's talk about technology that can protect us. We live in a time where there are tools, resources, and apps designed specifically to keep your data safe.
Yeah.
Use a VPN to hide your IP and protect your online footprint. Look into secure messaging apps, ones that offer end-to-end encryption. Don't just accept the default settings on your phone or your apps. Take a few minutes to go in and change your privacy settings. Turn off location tracking, limit app permissions, keep the control in your hands. These little steps might feel small, but together they make a massive difference in keeping parts of our lives private. But let's not kid ourselves. Personal steps can only go so far. This issue is bigger than any one of us. If we want real change, we need to push for laws and regulations that actually protect us. This is where we have to hold our leaders accountable. We need to let them know that we care about this, that we expect them to fight for our right to privacy. Think about it. Laws exist to protect our property, our health, our rights. But somehow our digital selves, our data, are still mostly up for grabs. That's not okay. We need policies that make it clear that our data is our property, not something to be bought, sold, or taken without our consent. We need laws that hold companies accountable for misuse, that impose real consequences for breaches of our privacy. And that's not going to happen unless we demand it. And, you know, it's not just about legal protection. It's about building a culture that respects privacy. Think about what that would mean. A society where companies design products with privacy as a priority, where our personal data isn't just seen as a commodity, but as a part of who we are. Society that doesn't push people to sacrifice their private lives for the sake of convenience. Imagine if tech companies didn't just chase profits, but actually valued the dignity and autonomy of their users. That's the kind of world we need to build, where privacy isn't something we have to beg for, but something that's respected and safeguarded. The bottom line is this: protecting privacy isn't just about the here and now. It's about the future we're creating. Because every time we give up a bit of our privacy, we're giving up a bit of our freedom. And over time, those small sacrifices add up. If we're not careful, we could end up in a world where privacy is nothing more than a memory, a relic of the past.
But if we stand together, if we educate ourselves, if we push back, we can hold on to it.
We can protect it, not just for ourselves, but for future generations. Privacy is not dead, but it's fragile. It's something we have to actively defend. It's up to us to make sure that our children and our grandchildren inherit a world where they're free to be themselves without fear, without constant surveillance. This is about preserving the very essence of what it means to live freely. It's about keeping a space that belongs only to you. And that, my friends, is worth fighting for. All right, so here we are, diving deep into this journey. Almost 50 parts in, and if you've been with me this long, you get it. Privacy isn't just an idea. It's a living, breathing part of who we are. And we're fighting tooth and nail to hold on to something so precious, something that we should never have had to fight for in the first place. It's almost mind-bending when you think about it. Privacy is this quiet, invisible, right? We all took for granted growing up, a background freedom that allowed us to be ourselves. Now, it's slipping through our fingers like sand, and we're all just waking up to what it means to lose it. This isn't just about us, the adults in the room. This is about our kids, the next generation, and the kind of world they'll inherit. Imagine a world where they never know what it feels like to have a truly private moment. Imagine them growing up with the feeling that someone somewhere is always watching, always listening, always ready to judge. What happens to a generation when they don't have the space to make mistakes, to explore who they are without a permanent record tracking their every move? Privacy is the soil where individuality grows. When we lose that, we lose the ability to truly express ourselves, to be fearless in our thoughts and actions. And look, I know it sounds heavy, but it is. This is heavy. We're talking about the future freedom here, the kind of future we're leaving behind. We can't just sit back and let it happen. Let our privacy be a casualty of progress. We've got to push for balance. Technology is incredible, but it shouldn't come at the cost of our humanity, our autonomy, our right to simply exist without constantly being cataloged and measured. Because here's the truth. When privacy goes, so does trust. Trust in our systems, trust in our relationships, even trust in ourselves. When you know you're being watched, you start changing, adapting, censoring yourself. And that's not freedom. That's control, that's surveillance, and it eats away at the very core of who we are as individuals, as a society. I'm talking to every single person out there who's listening, who's been following along on this journey, because this is not just my fight or your fight. This is everyone's fight. We're in a battle to preserve our most basic rights, to protect that sacred space where we can think, feel, dream, and create without the world looking over our shoulder. It's time we demand better. Hold companies accountable. Tell our leaders that privacy isn't negotiable. It's not some relic of the past. It's the foundation of a free and open society. So as we wrap up another chapter in this conversation, remember, this fight isn't over, not even close. Privacy might be under siege, but it's not gone. It's up to us to protect it, to teach our kids about it, to value it deeply. Because in the end, it's not just about privacy. It's about freedom, about living fully, about being human. And if that's not worth fighting for, I don't know what is. All right, so we've gone over the importance of privacy, the threats it faces, and why we can't ignore this issue.
No.
Let's get into the very real consequences of losing privacy. Consequences that, let's be honest, a lot of people don't fully consider. Imagine for a second a life where every moment, every interaction, every decision you make is recorded and analyzed. It might sound extreme, but that's where we're headed. It's happening right now, just slowly enough that most people don't notice. And when we stop noticing, we stop caring. That's dangerous. Privacy, or the loss of it, isn't just some abstract idea or first world problem. It's a fundamental shift in how we exist in the world, in how we see ourselves, and in how we relate to each other. Losing privacy isn't just inconvenient. It changes the way we live. Think about it. When privacy goes out the window, so does our sense of security. And I'm not talking about the kind of security you get from locks on doors or fences or around houses. I'm talking about the internal security, the peace of mind that comes from knowing there's a part of you that's yours and yours alone. It's that feeling that lets you think without censoring yourself, that lets you make mistakes without feeling like the whole world is watching. Privacy gives us that cushion, that breathing room to be human, to be flawed, to be real. Take that away, and you've got a society that's always on edge, always looking over its shoulder, always second-guessing itself. And let's be clear, when we're constantly under watch, we don't just lose security, we lose freedom. Because when people know they're being watched, they start to act differently. They say different things, they take fewer risks, they hold back. The magic of free expression, of creativity, of innovation, all of that starts to shrink in a world without privacy. Suddenly, people start playing it safe. They keep their thoughts to themselves. They avoid controversy. They stop pushing boundaries. And for what? To fit into a box that someone else has designed, to become a version of themselves that's safe enough for the world to see. That's not freedom. That's a performance. And I think deep down, we all know that's not how life should be lived. Let's also talk about the effect this has on relationships, because privacy isn't just an individual thing. It's woven into the very fabric of our connections with each other. Privacy is what allows us to build trust, to open up to someone without feeling vulnerable to the whole world. Imagine if every conversation you had with a friend or loved one was recorded and could be replayed or analyzed. You'd hold back, right? You wouldn't go as deep. You'd stick to safe topics, avoid the messy stuff, the real stuff, relationships, the genuine ones, the ones that shape us, require a level of intimacy that only privacy can provide. Take that away, and our connections become shallow, cautious, distant. We end up living in a world where everyone is guarded, where nobody truly lets down their walls. And that's a sad world, lonely one. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be that way. Privacy isn't gone yet. We still have a say, a chance to protect it, to push back, to demand that our right to be left alone, to have a part of ourselves that belongs only to us, is respected, and that starts with each of us. We have to stop seeing privacy as some old-fashioned idea that doesn't fit in the modern world. We have to see it for what it is, essential, vital, something worth defending. Because if we keep ignoring the small invasions, the little data leaks, the constant surveillance, we'll wake up one day and find that privacy is a thing of the past. So let's take this seriously. Let's start caring. Privacy isn't just a luxury for people who have something to hide. It's a right for people who have something to protect. And that's all of us. We all have something worth keeping private, something that's ours alone. It's not just about data or preferences or what we buy online. It's about our humanity. It's about having a space where we can think, feel, explore, connect, and just be. And if we let that slip away, if we let ourselves become numb to the loss of privacy, we'll lose a piece of what it means to be alive, to be free. That's what's at stake here. It's not just about the present. It's about the kind of future we're creating, and whether that future is one where we can still truly be ourselves. All right, so now that we've gone deep into the importance of privacy, the risks of losing it, and how it shapes our sense of self, let's talk about something even more profound. Privacy is a foundation for trust. You see, privacy and trust are like two sides of the same coin. When you have privacy, you have the ability to choose who you share yourself with. And that choice, that ability to reveal only what you want to the people you trust, creates bonds. It's the foundation of authentic relationships, of true connection. Trust is fragile. It's something that has to be earned and built over time. And privacy gives us the space to do that. When we're free to let our guard down with someone without the worry that our vulnerabilities are being exposed to the whole world, we can build something real. Think about your closest relationships. They're close not because you share everything with everyone, but because you selectively share the most intimate, raw, sometimes messy parts of yourself with people you trust. Privacy makes that possible. Now imagine if privacy were gone. Imagine if every conversation, every shared moment, every private thought you revealed to someone could be accessed by others, analyzed, and even used against you. What happens to trust then? It disintegrates. People become guarded, closed off. They hesitate to share, to be vulnerable, to open up. And this doesn't just affect our personal lives, it affects society at large. When privacy is stripped away, so is the trust that binds communities, that enables us to work together, to support one another, to build something bigger than ourselves. Without privacy, we start to fear one another. We become suspicious, cautious, worried that anything we say or do could come back to haunt us. And that is not the world we want to live in. That is not the foundation of a free society. Let's also look at how privacy and trust impact our institutions. Trust is what holds a society together, from our government to our businesses to our justice system. If we don't trust that these institutions respect our privacy, how can we believe that they truly represent us? How can we feel like they're working in our best interests? When governments and corporations don't value privacy, they erode the very trust that makes people feel secure in their society. It's a vicious cycle. Without privacy, trust crumbles. And when trust crumbles, institutions become ineffective, dysfunctional. People disengage, they stop participating, they stop believing, and that's dangerous. That's when societies start to unravel. But let's not stop there, because this isn't just about avoiding a bad outcome. It's about creating a world where we can thrive. Privacy enables creativity, innovation, and progress when people feel they have a safe space to experiment, to think freely, to share new ideas without fear of judgment or repercussion. That's when innovation happens. That's when we get the breakthroughs that change the world. Look at the people who have made a mark on history. The thinkers, the inventors, the artists. They needed space to dream, to create, to push boundaries. They needed privacy to explore without constant scrutiny. Imagine if every one of their thoughts had been public, if every early draft of their work had been open to criticism before they were ready to share it. They might never have created, never dared, never pushed forward. Privacy isn't just a shield, it's a crucible, a place where new things can take shape, where ideas can be born. So what does all this mean for us today? It means that we have a choice to make. Are we going to allow privacy to slip away, to let it become a thing of the past? Or are we going to defend the past? Or are we going to defend it, to stand up and say this matters? This is worth protecting? Because let's be real, we're at a crossroads. Technology is advancing faster than we've ever seen before. Data is being gathered on a scale we couldn't have imagined a few decades ago. And there are incredible possibilities that come with that. But there's also a cost, a trade-off, and we need to be honest about that. Privacy is that line in the sand, that boundary that says, I am more than my data. I am more than a statistic. I am a human being with the right to live without constant surveillance. We have to wake up to this reality and act before it's too late. We need to demand transparency from the companies that hold our data, to support laws that protect our right to privacy, to push for a culture that respects personal boundaries. This isn't just about avoiding negative consequences. It's about building a world that values individual dignity, a world where people are free to be themselves without fear. Privacy gives us that world. It gives us room to grow, to connect, to build trust, to create, to thrive. And that's worth fighting for. So let's protect it, let's value it, let's refuse to let it slip away. Because in the end, privacy isn't just a right, it's the heartbeat of freedom itself. All right, so here we are, digging even deeper. We've talked about privacy as the foundation of trust, about its impact on our relationships, our sense of self, and the very fabric of society. But here's another angle to consider. Privacy is a safeguard for democracy. This is one of those topics that doesn't get enough attention because on the surface, it might not seem like there's a connection. But trust me, the link between privacy and democracy is powerful and it's vital. Because without privacy, democracy as we know it, the freedom we enjoy, the ability to think and vote and act independently, all of it starts to break down. Think about what democracy really is. It's the idea that every person has a voice, that everyone gets to participate in shaping the direction of their society, of their country, but to participate freely. You need space to think for yourself, to develop your own beliefs without interference, to have conversations and debates without the fear of being watched, judged, or punished. Privacy gives us that freedom. It lets us think critically, challenge authority, and hold leaders accountable without constantly looking over our shoulders. In a society where every opinion, every political inclination, every dissenting thought is tracked and cataloged, true freedom to participate in democracy fades. People become fearful of standing out, of questioning the status quo, of advocating for change, and without the courage to speak up, to think independently, democracy dies. Privacy also protects the integrity of our elections. Let's face it. We're living in a world where data is king, where targeted messaging can sway opinions, and where foreign and domestic forces can exploit that data to manipulate how we think, how we vote. When our data is out there, when our preferences, biases, and fears are laid bare, it becomes all too easy for those in power or those with enough resources to influence us in subtle, sometimes invisible ways. They don't need to tell us outright who to vote for. They just need to shape the information we see, guide the conversations we're exposed to, nudge us in the direction they want us to go. It's a silent influence, one that we barely notice. But make no mistake, it's real and it's powerful. Privacy is our shield against that kind of manipulation. When our data is protected, when our choices are private, we're harder to influence, harder to control. We get to make decisions based on our own beliefs, not on the invisible hands guiding us toward a certain outcome. But let's not stop there. Privacy doesn't just protect our democracy from external threats. It also protects us from internal decay. When people are constantly monitored, when every action and belief is watched and recorded, something fundamental changes. Fear seeps in. Fear of saying the wrong thing, of standing out, of being different. And that fear is toxic to democracy. Democracy thrives on diversity of thought, on debate, on the clash of different ideas. It's messy, it's loud, it's sometimes uncomfortable, but that's what makes it strong. Privacy fuels that environment. It allows people to take risks, to voice unpopular opinions, to be critical of their leaders, to be themselves without fear. But when privacy disappears, when people start feeling like they're always under surveillance, that openness fades. People retreat into safe, predictable patterns. They conform. They stop questioning. And when that happens, democracy becomes hollow, a shell of what it's meant to be. And listen, I know that technology is here to stay. I know that data collection isn't going anywhere. I'm not saying we turn our backs on progress or shut down every app or device that collects our information. But what I'm saying is that we need balance. We need boundaries. We need to put up guardrails that protect our privacy, that limit what can be collected and how it can be used. This isn't about rejecting technology. It's about shaping it to serve us, not control us. It's about saying, yes, I want the benefits of modern life, but not at the cost of my right to think, to speak, to vote, and to live freely. We have to demand that our technology respects our privacy, that it's designed with our rights in mind. We have to push for transparency, for accountability, for a culture that values our personal space as much as it values innovation. This isn't just a fight for privacy. It's a fight for the future of democracy. It's a fight for our right to make our own choices, to be part of a society where freedom is real and not just a word. And we're the ones who have to lead it. If we let privacy slip away, we're not just losing a personal freedom. we're losing the ability to live in a truly democratic society. So let's wake up to what's at stake. Let's defend privacy not just as a right, but as a cornerstone of the world we want to live in. Because without it, we're just going through the motions, pretending to be free while silently giving up the power to shape our own lives. Privacy is more than just a shield. It's the very ground on which democracy stands. And that, my friends, is something worth protecting with everything we've got.